Hi, I'm Peter Kay from Restoration Design, and today we're going to be installing a tunnel harness on our shop car, which is a 1966 911S. We're going to start in the front luggage compartment with our fuse panel and our bulkhead plugs, and we're going to work back in towards the passenger compartment, install our relays behind the pedal board, and then work our way through the tunnel towards the torsion tube. We'll show you how it's routed through the tunnel properly, give you some tips and tricks to getting it done. Once we get there, we're going to work up to the starter, around the transaxle, and into the engine bay, and finish off with our rear lights. If you're doing a bottom-up restoration, so you do full strip of the car down to bare metal, you get it painted, the next thing that goes into a car is a wiring harness. And that's why here at Restoration Design, we got into wiring harnesses, and here we are installing them on our own car. Given the value of 911s these days, one of the fundamental elements of them is the wiring, and it's an important part of the restoration process to ensure your car runs appropriately and you don't have a risk of fire or short circuits that could cause further problems. One of the key features we want to discuss about our harness are the bulkhead plugs that are found going from the front luggage compartment in towards the passenger compartment, connecting the ignition, wiper, and turn signal on the steering column. These are the plugs here. They're 8-pin plugs, 7 female pins and 1 male pin on the front luggage compartment side. And we make these here in-house. We've made our own dies and inject the material around the pins. In the past, we've found many people restoring these harnesses use the incorrect size pins, be an imperial pin, but we've had these manufactured specifically for this purpose. This plug here will be compatible with an original harness. So you could use this new harness on the front luggage compartment side and on the steering column side, plug into the original one. So this is our gauge wiring here, and then our switch wiring and wiper motor wiring goes under steering brace. So we've installed the fuse panel on the 2 screws, and the next is locating these bulkhead plugs, the gray plugs. So first is your ignition plug all the way to the driver's side of the car. Then there's your light switch plug, followed by the wiper plug. And these correspond to the switches on your steering column. So this is pretty much goes to your key. Then you have this for your left side of your steering column and right side of the steering column. So we're getting those locked in to the firewall here, or the bulkhead, and then we'll move to the rest of the harness. So this whole bundle needs to go through this little grommet. It's pretty much the main challenge of the installation here is getting everything fitted through some pretty tight and narrow spots. So with respect to routing on the front luggage compartment of the tunnel harness, we've roughly situated and we're done. Now towards the relays under the pedal board and attaching our battery cable as well. And we're going to try to pull the battery cable with the tunnel harness. This is a simple upholstery tool that we bought on Amazon. You buy a kit, I think they're $15. So when you're installing these plugs and you're going through the bulkhead, you want to make sure that these 4 tabs on this spring clip pass through the wall and lock them in. These can't be floating around loose. So in order to get enough downwards pressure on these to engage those spring clips, you can use the upholstery tool to push on the plug. So you don't want to create any impressions on here or force the pins inside the plug in the wrong direction. So highly recommend you picking up a set of these upholstery tools on Amazon, or you buy them from Snap-on for way too much money, but that's up to you. So we have finished installing the three plugs, and they're secure in the car. We've secured our fuse panel. So we'll just get this routed into the passenger side. So here you've got your wiper motor, fog light switch, and off over to your interior lights, which would be for your front luggage compartment and your door switch. So all these connections are detailed in our customer drawings. So when you purchase this harness, you will receive a copy of the drawing, which you can follow and help you locate which wires go where. We've got the front luggage compartment routed under the wiper motor towards the interior light over there. The gauge wires just tucked in through the tack recess. Bulkhead plugs are done, flasher relay is fixed. Now we got to route this whole section through this little hole bit by bit, and that will take us up behind the pedal board, which we've removed on this car, to where all the relays hide. So we'll get that situated, and then from there we move to the tunnel. Some of the wire or conduit lubricant you buy is yellow, and that'll stain. You want to get the clear stuff. It dries up, doesn't stain, wipes off easily, water soluble. A few bucks at Home Depot, can't go wrong. So anytime we get into a tight spot, especially when we have two plastics or rubbers and it, creating friction, they don't want to slide very well. So we'll just cover a bit of the harness with this, and keep feeding it through this grommet. And like no problem after it, super easy. We'll probably have to add a little more lubricant here, but this branch point is in our favor. So just got to be careful I don't pinch these. You'll see a bunch of loose ends coming through. What do you need for wiring? I think for wiring do patience and tenacity go together? Is that like a combo? Because you definitely need the tenacity to fight it through. And this is the tunnel section for the same car that we're working on. So we'll use this as an example as to how the harness is routed. This is probably the most challenging section, so this is great. We can use something on the bench top. The harness, you got your pedals right here, pedal board, okay? Your harness and battery cable are gonna come through this orifice here. They're gonna run under, here you got your shifter, handbrake, and here's your little sensor wire, handbrake switch wire, okay? It's routed through this little pocket. We have a lot of things going on under this tunnel. We've got a shifter linkage that runs back to the transmission, okay? We've got handbrake cables, we've got a throttle cable, and a clutch cable. So it's very important that you don't just route the harness through the tunnel ad hoc. We have to keep in mind that there is a little subsection here that the tunnel harness and the battery cable run through. So this is some metric 10 millimeter wire we have. Okay, so the battery and harness are going to come through here under the tab and get pushed, pulled, and you can see how difficult it is even with one small cable. So get ready for a job. Then out towards the torsion tube. We're being a little bold here on our car because the shifter, handbrake, and engine are still in it. So we can't use these as access points. Not that you really could because it's enclosed, but you can use this point here to push the harness and over here to pull. So the individual in the car, so you're gonna need a friend for this. One person's gonna be on the outside by the torsion tube and one person on the inside. And you're gonna be with each hand. One hand's pushing, actually both hands will be pushing the harness through, and your buddy's gonna be pulling on the outside of the car. So it's gonna be a lot of work. We're gonna get it done. We've taken 3 pieces of stainless welding rod, TIG welding rod, fused them together and used them as a feeder wire. So we went from the back through the tunnel, and you can see the wires come up here under the relay. Now we can attach far into the harness to that, start feeding it through the tunnel. Hopefully we can get far enough where we can get the first few wires at hand's grip here. So I'll tape the wires to that and see how it goes. So we're also going to install a battery cable while we're doing this, a nice fresh one. Now that the harness is narrowed, so we've got the thick section through the tunnel, we can tape to this the battery cable, and that'll help us route it. But we're just taking some of the electrical tape we have here for our harnesses, and we're going to just wrap a layer across all the loose wires. And then we'll put some of the lubricant on that, and hopefully that'll ease the passage of the wires through the tunnel. We've gotten the harness more or less through. A good indicator of that is that our handbrake switch wire is now in the right spot. So look at that. So we're gonna push that up into this little section here. Gets tucked under the carpet. This used to be a race car, so it doesn't have an interior. It makes it easier. And it's gonna go on the little tab on the back side of the lever for the handbrake. So we're not gonna install it now, but it would go like so. Now we gotta tidy up this front section here. So a little bit of pulling and maneuvering. And in order to get the wires tucked in where you want them, you've gotta work the cable and work the sheathing. In any case, or in the worst case, you can gently heat up the material. So with a heat gun on low setting, heat up the material, the plastics a little bit, so they become more pliable, and then you can tuck them into the corners. But the factory harness had an additional covering on it, or layer of protection. So we offer that with the harness here, and that's these two tubes. We gotta slide that on now. And obviously, we wouldn't have been able to slide the harness through the tunnel having these on, so they gotta happen after the fact. So I haven't unwrapped the harness from all the work I did in the car to help me with the installation of this. So shorter section first, that'll allow the starter wires to come out, and then follow through with the longer section of this neoprene style covering. So now we've got it routed in that little groove, and it's gonna go up through that little hole. After sorting out the starter cable, we had to cross over the top of the transaxle. Now, this is obviously much more difficult when you have it in the car. So a lot of restoration jobs you won't, but it's also showing that it is possible to do it with the engine and the transaxle in the car. Cross over the top, and just around this shock post, the harness goes up into the engine bay. So Patrick's grabbed the harness there and pulled it up, so we can finish routing it to the regulator panel, where it stops, nearly more or less terminates, and then to the lights, the rear lights. That would conclude the aft portion of the tunnel harness. Viewers may have already noticed, this engine is not the original engine for this car. This is in fact a 2.7 liter. So we will be making a subsequent video that has a custom engine harness hooking the MSD up to the short wheelbase tunnel harness. So just keep in mind that some of these details may not apply to other short wheelbase cars. This branch point is literally 10 millimeters where it needs to be.
That's so good.
It's really good. That's hard. So I'm finally removing all that extra tape I put on in the car. That's coming off. So originally I taped this all up so it wouldn't get caught on any of the body panels. But now that we've gotten as far as we're going with the harness, we can remove the tape I added. So under it were the flag terminals for the rear lights and some grommets, just exposing those. And the wires, the two wires for the oil level sender, which is tucked in behind the right rear quarter. So some of the things that you want to keep in mind when getting ready for a job like this is we had the car up on a hoist. I can't imagine doing it on jack stands, but if that's the case, all the power to you. Certainly have someone to help you, one or two guys or gals to help you fish the wire through and be your second set of eyes. We took the hood off and the deck lid as well. That made it easier for us to access everything. A few things you want to be careful about. Despite wrapping the harness when you're feeding it through the tunnel, you still want to be careful that you don't snag on it or pull on it too hard when it gets snagged up. I think next time we do this, I'm going to use an expandable braid on the harness versus taping it up with electrical tape, or maybe both. You got to be careful about snagging it. You don't want to tear it. So if you do snag, instead of pulling more, get someone on the inside of the car to pull it back a few inches to maybe release that hook and then try again. I would encourage you to do that instead of pulling forcefully. Certainly you're going to want to have a wiring diagram. We supply one with the harness. However, the more resources you have, the better. So we love using the Jeff Bryan harness drawings. They're super helpful. So I encourage you to Google his wiring diagrams as well. In addition to ours, there are some factory drawings as well, which we have on file. So those are helpful. And that will help you get orientated within the car. So you'll know which wires go where, and your routing can be done appropriately. In addition to that, I would encourage you to do it without an engine and a transaxle, but again, like you saw, it is possible to do it. It just will take you an extra hour or two to get it up and over the transaxle. Lastly, you're probably looking at two or three people, 6 to 8 hours to get the job done start to finish. With respect to some of the tools that we use today, of course, we had the typical wrenches and screwdrivers on hand to help with the fuse panel and some of the components in the engine bay. However, there were 3 lifesavers today, I'd say. First one is the sewing shearing tool. So stitch shear right here. You can buy it at your Fabric Land store for about $3. So grab one of these. It'll help you peel back that electrical tape that's been through a lot of stress. Just be careful not to poke through your brand new harness. Well, that is super helpful and an inexpensive tool. Second set of tools were the upholstery tools. So again, Amazon, 15 bucks. And the Conduit Lubricant that you can buy at Home Depot. Make sure you get the clear one that dries without stains. There are some products out there that do stain, so be wary of that. Clear, no stain lubricant, super helpful. I hope you guys liked our video of the tunnel harness install. Please do comment below if you've done it differently or saw something we did wrong. I'd like to know and hear from you. So please comment, hit the like button, and do subscribe. We hope to have more videos for you soon.